Welcome back, welcome back.
Hello.
Thursday night couples cocktails. She got some new earrings. I don't know, did you see the you like your earrings?
These
there?
are from Gypsy Teal, one of my favorite stores in Bethany Beach, Delaware. Shout out to Gypsy Teal.
Yeah, very, very pretty. Well, as we like to do, talk about we're drinking, but before we get to the drinks, well, okay, you talk about the drink first.
Well, this is kind of exciting because for most of the summer we tried to get these things called high noons, and we found the high noons, and I think there was a shortage of aluminum cans,
right?
And they were out of them for a while, so they seem to be back in stock. So I found.
And is it good?
Yeah, this one's pineapple. It's not my favorite. I actually like the grapefruit one better. Okay. But it's a vodka soda, and it's a light kind of drink. It's nice for summer, and it still feels like summer today.
Sweet. All right, I am drinking one of my favorite warm weather bourbons, or actually whiskeys. This is a Michter's Sour Mash whiskey. Very delicious if you can get your hands on it. And all summer I've been in the mood for my old Coors banquet beer. Yellow Jackets, we used to call them. I don't know if they still call them Yellow Jackets, but that's what we call them.
Cheers.
And they're not too shabby. So we can't move on without doing a quick hat talk, right? Both of us grabbed hats tonight.
Yeah, mostly because I didn't want to do my hair.
Well, and I've been liking to wear hats, and this is one of my favorites. Gorin Brothers from the Nashville store, my favorite town, as folks know. Italian straw. Yeah, what do you think?
Nice.
Nice, huh? So it matches my shirt,
nice.
all that. So
I don't know where mine's from. It's not a
That's right. You look gorgeous as always. So there's been a lot of talk these days, right, about science. Do you believe in the science? You don't believe in the science. Follow the science. Don't follow the science. But we are not here talking about COVID. We're not here talking about science and global warming. We're talking about the science of divorce and relationship breakups, right?
Yes,
Specifically.
Yes.
So if folks remember, some time ago, I guess it was close to a year ago, I did my top 5 reasons that people get divorced, which is based completely not on science, just on my observations as doing divorce work for 30 plus years. And we talked about those. But tonight we're going to shift to the science side, which is much more your bucket than mine because I don't have the patience for it.
Yep.
So let's start first of all easy, right? Common causes of divorce from a studies scientific perspective.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So some of the, you guys probably know, like if you came from a divorced family, your parents were divorced, you have a higher likelihood of divorcing yourself. So that's one very common kind of thing that you see. People that marry very young, like teens, and people that marry over a certain age, and it's 32.
32? I wonder why 32?
I don't know.
So people get married
younger,
at 32 or older tend to have a higher rate of divorce statistically.
Yeah. So probably because they're set in their ways, but I'm just guessing at that. I don't know, but we know that the numbers are there. So marry young and marry older, and
so just so we're clear, so if I remarried,
you would get divorced.
I would get divorced.
plus, the more you get divorced, the higher your rate of divorce is. So
yes,
that's true.
But I'm not set in my ways, so.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
Okay.
So anyway, another characteristic or determinant is people that didn't finish high school have a higher percentage of a higher divorce rate.
What about people who aren't so affectionate? What about that? Is there any science on that?
Well, interesting that you ask about that, because there was a study that I read that people that show a lot of affection early on in their relationship have a higher rate of divorce. I know it sounds crazy, and I reread it. Yeah. So what they were saying is that, like, people.
So when you say early on in the relationship, you're not talking about before they've been married for 34 years.
Right.
Okay.
No. Okay. So, but like early on in the marriage, like newlyweds, and even getting to know each other, people that were very, very affectionate actually had a higher rate of divorce, which was kind of funny. And so they were saying that that you're lacking in some other areas, so you want to show the affection like to other people, like this is important.
Early in your relationship.
Yes.
So if you show it later it's not.
That's fine.
I'll keep my hands to myself.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's it.
See, I like
He likes.
I like it. I'm all about that.
Yes.
Yeah. And so affection early in a relationship.
Yeah.
Statistically, based on what your research is.
Yeah. Over affection, like a lot of affection.
Over affection.
Yeah.
Like,
not like I held hand.
Like the high school TMI in the hallways next to the lockers, except you're an adult and all that stuff.
So I want to say so it could be that you're trying to prove something, and then also we know that if the only connection you have is physical, that doesn't always carry you later into your relationship. You need to have the physical connection, but you need to have an emotional connection.
How long does it carry you for?
I don't know, a couple years.
Okay.
So anyway, so that
Okay.
could be part of why people
Okay.
get divorced.
All right. So
yeah.
the affectionate.
Yeah.
Okay, affection. Okay, so now we're going to move. Our dog's probably going to bark, so we apologize
Yes.
in advance. Okay, so now
And Valerie Thaxter says we definitely show it later.
Much
So,
better, yes.
Much better.
Okay, well,
and Valerie's having a
I agree.
birthday.
You know what? I agree
Happy
with that,
birthday, Valerie.
We'll have to have that discussion offline, but I agree with that very much.
Yep.
So, okay, so now you were talking lately about this Harvard study that you read, that if I wasn't sleepy to begin with, I certainly was sleepy 5 minutes into you telling me about it. But tell me, so without drilling into all the details, right? Talk about this recent study that came out of Harvard College. Is it Harvard College or Harvard University?
Harvard University.
That's Michael or your father.
Yeah,
whatever it is.
Harvard University, I think.
Okay.
So they did a study in 2016 that if in a traditional marriage, female and male, if the male did not work full time, that was that they had a higher chance of divorce.
So in a traditional
Yes.
relationship,
Yes. So a
traditional
husband and
marriage,
a wife. Mm-hmm.
where the husband doesn't work full time, there was a higher incidence of divorce.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know why that would be, except maybe around too much, or there was a financial crush.
Well, it could be financial. It could be also respect
And
and
when you say
control.
traditional, you mean that traditional in the sense that the male would go out and work and the female
Yes.
would stay home.
Yes,
Okay.
and traditional that it's
Okay.
male and female.
Okay. And your mother
Right.
clarified it's Harvard College.
Oh, Harvard
which is what I thought, by the way.
College. Okay.
But I wasn't going to say anything.
My
Okay.
dad went to Harvard, so I should
Okay.
know that. And
All right.
I actually went to Harvard for the weekend. for
Yes,
a
yes, that's in a
reunion.
chapter in the book. Okay, so
Yeah.
okay, but all right. So now I'll move on to something a
Yeah.
little bit newer. This
Yeah.
this whole Fortnite
Yeah.
weird
Yeah.
stuff.
So
I know I shouldn't say that. but
Fortnite is a pretty popular video game. And they found that that if there was one person in the relationship that was playing Fortnite, that also was a higher rate of divorce. So,
well, that I get. Okay, right?
well,
I mean,
yes.
I mean, who wants to be married to somebody who's playing Fortnite?
But it also speaks to just general in addiction to
Okay,
things in
okay.
general, and people that have addiction in their relationship probably also have a higher percentage of divorce.
So was the focus on Fortnite specifically, or other like computer games?
I
or
think
whatever?
they used Fortnite as an example, but I think it would trend. I think you could generalize it to people that play a
Okay.
lot of video games,
Okay.
were maybe ignoring their partners, were maybe addicted to their.
I mean, I'm not a video game guy, so it's not fair for me to.
Right, but you could generalize and say someone that was addicted to gambling or porn or
Right.
drinking would have a higher rate of divorce.
Well, that
as
makes
well.
sense. No, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So moving along, right? So let's talk about John Gottman and his wife and their science and their work, and,
Yeah.
and just preliminarily, when we were pitching our book and our agent was pitching our book, one of the questions that arose with regularity was, why is your book different, right, from Gottman's book, The Love Lab? What was the other one called? I know I wrote it down here. The Seven Principles of Making Marriage Work. How is your book different?
Yeah.
And we always said to people that our book was different because it wasn't in a lab and
Right.
it wasn't a science project because we're not scientists. That our book was based on, we're the actors, we're the observers, and what we saw and what we actually did and did together.
Yeah.
But so the Gottman stuff is very important, I think, to look at, right?
Yeah.
So
I mean, John Gottman is a psychologist, and he is been doing research on relationships
Right.
since the 1970s.
I mean, that's a long
Yeah,
time.
and so his stuff is
Yeah.
based on research. He's written some fabulous.
I was
books.
watching Saturday Night Fever, like 19 times, going to the movies
Yeah.
in the 1970s,
Yeah.
and listening to the Eagles a billion times.
Yeah.
But okay, so go
Yeah,
ahead.
so he
I
did
dig- I
research, and he also works with his wife as a therapist, and they've written stuff together. But in the 70s, he had a partner, I think somebody named Silver, Nan Silver, maybe, I don't remember.
Okay.
So he set up this Love Lab, which was a fake it was a real apartment, but it was a fake situation where they would look at couples and they would test their blood pressure, they would do urine samples, they would do blood samples and look for like hormone levels and like all kinds of levels in people's systems.
But let me ask you a question before you go further about
Yeah.
what they found. So couples volunteered for these studies, right? I mean, like Masters and Johnson back in the 50s and 60s. Okay, and they would live in this apartment that's filled with cameras.
Yes,
or
it was like a regular
Okay,
apartment,
okay.
but it was filled with cameras and
watching
professionals.
everything they did
Yeah, and they also did like they actually took blood and urine from people
at
and,
different times during the day. Okay, okay,
and looked at levels of different things.
okay.
And they got some very interesting information
Okay,
from
let
that.
me ask you a question before we get to the information. As someone who studies this kind of stuff, right? So if you and I are in an apartment that we know is covered in cameras and we're being watched, what is the possibility of people acting differently, right? Because if they act differently, then the results will be skewed. I mean, isn't that accurate?
Yes.
Okay.
But what happens after a while is in the beginning you may act differently, and then as time goes on, old patterns just kind of emerge.
Okay, so they were in there. It wasn't just a day or two. You're talking about a long stretch of time.
Yeah, they came for hours at a time, or maybe they spent
Days
the night. I don't remember exactly, but so it wasn't just like they came in for 15 minutes, because people could act well for 15 minutes and act nice.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, I take it in some ways it's kind of like couples therapy, right? Where somebody comes in and they meet with you, and in the first few minutes everybody's very decent to each other, and it takes a while for you to sort of drill in, and they start.
I mean, you're going to see
different.
people's natural ways of interacting. So, so they did this research, and they found some very interesting things. And one of the interesting things was they could predict with 95% accuracy what couples were not going to make it.
Okay, and how would they do that? What was the
well, I'm just going to be very, very, like drill down. General.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's a lot of other components, but what they found was that couples that had a pattern of empathetic, kind, gratefulness versus criticism and anger, they looked at these ratios, and what they found was couples that had a 5-to-1 were going to make it, and if you had an 8-to-1 or over ratio of positive, negative, and positive. Okay.
All right. So you stink at math. So let me just make sure I understand this. Okay.
Yeah.
So if your interactions with your significant other were 5 times or less negative versus positive, then you had a better chance. Your relationship had a better chance of surviving.
Yeah.
Right.
And if you had an 8% of negative,
not 8%,
8-to-1 ratio.
8-to-1. That's not 8%.
Okay, sorry.
That's 9. That's close to 90, around 90%. So if you were 8-to-1 in terms of negative versus positive interaction or comments or whatever, or above that, and I imagine there's a lot of people above that. I see a lot of people who I'm sure are above that.
That there was no positives. That it was all like you did this or you did that.
So
or
those
you
people
didn't do this.
are heading my way.
Yeah, they're coming to your office.
Okay.
They might as well. In fact, they should have just at the Love Lab. They probably should have just given out the cards for the divorce attorneys right there.
I'd be a good place to have my card.
Hey, like you're 9-to-1 or 8-to-1 or whatever, and you're like, whatever. So yes. So that was, an interesting kind of phenomenon, and 95%. Oh my God, that's an amazing statistic.
All right, so they do. So they have these folks, and they observe all of their in this lab arrangement, and they observe their interactions, and they're tracking their interactions over a period of time.
Yes.
And then years later, right, they're looking at those same couples to find out if they're together or not together.
Correct.
And they found that if you have 8 parts negative interaction versus 1 part positive interaction, or a higher ratio of negative to positive, it's 95% chance that you're gonna get divorced and you're gonna split up.
Yep. Exactly.
That's pretty cool.
Exactly.
I mean, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it is.
Okay. So let's take that, right?
Yes.
And let's circle it all the way back to this whole science thing that we started with, all right? So that gets us to, what's the best scientific predictor of divorce, of a breakup, What is it?
It
Right,
is.
based on what you've read and what you've seen.
Yeah. So it is disrespect for your partner.
Okay.
And or contempt for your partner. So feeling negatively towards your partner.
Okay.
And also not respecting your partner.
All right. So let's talk about the net. Let's break that down. The disrespectful part. Or what's that look like?
She did this again. She's so stupid. She can't do anything right. Yeah.
Not thinking of what he or she has to say has any value or any importance, or laughing when you make a comment.
Yeah. Or not letting them in on decisions that need to be made. I mean, it can be things around, home life, like things aren't done the way they want. I've been working with a client who is not really allowed in the kitchen because she doesn't clean it up very well. And her husband doesn't want her in the kitchen cooking because he likes the kitchen a certain way.
So, okay. So that's a disrespectful sort of...
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the contempt side.
Yes.
And how do they differ?
Well, contempt is sort of like this is a strong word, but dislike or hate for somebody, like just being like put off by them.
Okay.
Right? I mean, what would you say contempt is?
Well, I mean, I think they're kind of, the way that you're describing them is that they're kind of side by side.
Yeah,
right?
they are.
So
they
disrespect and contempt in a lot of ways overlap in a relationship.
Yeah.
So the contempt again is, she is her opinion doesn't matter. His opinion doesn't make any difference.
Right.
They don't get it. They're stupid. They shouldn't be involved. They don't need to be involved. They don't bring anything to the conversation. Right? Is that kind of where you're coming from?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Huh?
So what do you guys do with this information, or what does somebody do with this information? I think if you see this in your relationship, it should be a red flag, and it should be something that you work on.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, if you're, I mean, I try, sometimes I forget, but I try to make sure that it's a positive reinforcement. Even something I don't really, frankly, like this, reading about this study, I was like, oh yeah, that's interesting.
No,
but it's a positive sort of thing.
Right. So, I always tell people, like, try to have, sometimes I even tell people aim for 10-to-1 ratio, where you say 10 nice things to somebody.
10-to-1 the other way.
Right. You say 10 nice things before
versus
you say a
one.
criticism.
Right. That's a complete reversal of what the Gottman study found.
Right.
So, right. So
right. But what I'm saying
is 8-to-1 negative to positive over here, you're talking about 10-to-1 all the way on the other side of the spectrum. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Okay.
So that people can digest and hear and accept a criticism if they've heard some really nice things prior to that.
Okay.
So think about that if you're with your spouse and you need a partner, and you need to tell them that you didn't like something. Make sure that you've told them that you do like something, not fake though, not like, oh, your green eyes match your green shirt, because David has brown eyes. So that would be fake. But try to, be, supportive and positive.
And if you have to be negative, it toggles back in some ways. If what you're about to say isn't going to matter as negative, you should maybe just not say it or turn it to a positive. So
Allison Zion says that she'd be happy if her husband
let her
did
in the kitchen.
Yeah. Maybe for a little while, but maybe he didn't cook the food that you want.
All right. So there's the science.
Hi Joe, thanks for meeting with Josie today.
There's the science. There's the science to you. Anybody else you want to say hi to? Thanks everybody for listening.
Stuart,
hi. Nashville, 2021, my
hi.
friend. So that is the science.
Yeah, that's the science of breakups and divorce.
Okay, there you have it. Thank you guys for joining us again. Let's run past the high noons she likes.
Michter's.
The Michter's Sour Mash. You want to go old school? Go Coors Banquet Beer. It's not too shabby. And Gorin Brothers, thanks for the lid. Love it. Wear it all the time. All
Be happy and healthy.
Peace.
And
we'll see you next week.
Be respectful.
Be respectful. You look absolutely lovely tonight.
So do you.
Oh, beautiful. Don't you? Yes.